Okay, well, welcome everyone to Effective Library Marketing Campaigns here at ILA. My name is Burgundy Hill, and I will be presenting today with Dan Bostrom from Rails and Ann Reeves from Eureka Public Library. We want to talk to you a little bit about how to build coordinated and effective marketing campaigns. We're going to go over branding and templates and actually what goes into making a marketing plan. So to give you a little bit of background about me, I am the Assistant Director and Marketing Coordinator at Quincy Public Library. I have been with Quincy Public Library for about a year now. So some of the things that I'm talking about, kind of my predecessor started and I took over a little bit way through. I also think it's interesting when I come to these things, I feel like people kind of fall into two categories. They're a marketer who is new to libraries or with a little library background, or a librarian who has had to take on marketing duties. So just to give you my background, I definitely fall in the marketer category. I have a master's degree in communication and am learning my way through the library category of that. So to tell you a little bit about QPL, we are located in Quincy, Illinois, in West Central Illinois. It's a really rural area. We're definitely the largest library district in our county, and we service about 52,000 people. It's about 20 miles away to the next closest library, which is certainly much, much smaller. We have an annual budget of about $2.5 million, and that is approved kind of in parts, but a big chunk of it is approved each year by our city council. And so the marketing plan that I'm going to talk to you today is one that we created when we were facing some pretty significant budget cuts going into our 2019-2020 fiscal year. So it has been the trend for several years for the city to kind of chip away at our budget. But this year in particular was going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was really going to be the line of having to reduce hours or reduce some of the services that we could provide. This goes back, and I won't get too much into the budgeting stuff here because I know I'm talking to a room full of marketers and numbers are not our foray at all. But it comes down to the city not wanting to increase the tax levy that we're on, and so they have made an agreement for decades now to subsidize the rest of what we need, and that subsidy is what they keep chipping away at. So that is kind of where this marketing plan came from, but I think an important question to ask is, what is marketing, right? Because it's really all encompassing, and Anna is, I think, going to tell you a little bit more about branding and creating templates and how that worked in her plan, but my plan was a little bit different than that because marketing is so all encompassing. It can be advocacy, it can be community engagement, it can be development, brand awareness, public relations, all of that falls under this marketing umbrella. And to me, all of those things are really rooted in storytelling. So we had a logo, we had those templates, we had a consistent brand, we had a color scheme and fonts and all of that. But somewhere we were still failing in some way. We knew what we were doing really well, but we were not able to tell that story effectively with the right people. And those people were our city council members and the people who were making the decisions when it came to our budget. Clearly, if we continue to face these budget cuts every year, something is not being translated effectively. So what do we do? How do we secure that money for us? How do we market appropriately to those people? Well, we recognized pretty quickly that if we were going to talk to the aldermen, we needed to talk to the aldermen directly. We could talk to the patrons coming through the door all day long. We could talk to the people on our social media page all day long. But I can't guarantee that the 15, decision makers when it came to our budget were being reached in those places. So we kind of had a two-prong approach to this. We talked directly to the aldermen during our city council meetings, and then we also made the publics that I kind of mentioned before that were our patrons aware that this was happening, so they could reach out to their aldermen and tell them what the cuts would mean for them. So to reach our target audience, we actually went directly into our city council chambers. The first meeting of the month, you're allowed to come in and speak about anything you want. You have a 3-minute spiel that you can give. So we identified some of our super users and we asked them to speak before our city council. We tried to get a diverse group of people. We tried to have people that we knew would speak on diverse topics. So we had, someone who was really into our local history, and we had a connection to our local school district and could talk about the services that we were supporting there. We had a young mother who attended all of our story times. We had a teen who was actively involved in our teen programs. So we really try to cover our bases, and I think in total we had about 12 people who gave those talks over a 3 or 4 month period. So I wanted to show you a really short clip here of Sonia and the testimonial that she gave. And if I go back.
The Quincy Public Library has had an enormous impact on my family's lives. My daughter is dyslexic. She was struggling to find a balance between her reading level and her intellectual level. It was a Quincy Public Library librarian who introduced us to graphic novels. At the time, to me, that meant comic books, and I wasn't particularly impressed. But then she showed me the graphic novel section. And the first book I saw was Little Women. I was pretty stunned. From that point, at school, my daughter was literally reading Dick and Jane books for her reading learning. At home, through the Quincy Public Library, she was reading Little Women, Oliver Twist, Moby Dick, and her favorite, The Scarlet Letter. I could go on, but my 3 minutes I wouldn't even complete them. And that's just the classics. That librarian in the Quincy Public Library changed her life.
So Sonia, in her testimonial, goes on to talk about her son, who became a member of our teen advisory board and started attending our teen programs. She talked about some of the programs that her daughter and herself had attended together, and the bond that they had made and the community connections that they had made. And then she also talked about how she was an aspiring author who just finished her first novel, thanks to some of the resources that we provided here at the library. It's such a moving testimonial. You could hear the emotion in her voice. And I don't think I could have created a brochure or even put a quote, on something, or hearing that from our staff would have been nearly as compelling as hearing that from Sonia. So having those super users and having our advocates speak on our behalf was such a compelling approach to the city council. And hearing that in their own words was more effective than I think anything we could have made or produced for them. So as you can see, that was recorded. We recorded all of those testimonials and put them out there for a wider audience. So you can see this is just a screenshot from our Facebook page. There's about 30, 40 people who regularly attend city council meetings. But by putting these videos online, we were able, with Sonia's video here, we were able to reach over 1,000 people. And all of the videos fell between, the 400 to 1,000 range, all 12 of them. So this, in the captions, we said, we're advocating to city council for our budget. Here's a testimonial of Sonia speaking on our behalf. We were able to share those on our social media pages. We were able to pull quotes from them and put them on graphics. We shared them in e-newsletters. So we were really able to repackage that content across several platforms to reach a wider audience, because though it was effective to speak directly to those decision makers, we also knew that we needed to drum up support and have other people reaching out to them as well. So with those marketing materials, we asked our patrons to contact their city council member, contact their alderman, and share their experience. We made bookmarks that had their contact information, their emails, so they could send their letters of support directly to them. And this really kind of helped drum up that net of support and reach the alderman in a lot of different ways. So we also were really honest about what we were facing. I think there's some hesitation to say, oh, we're going to cut services. But that was certainly not the case for us. We had a relatively new director at the time who has a lot of big dreams that we're still trying to accomplish. So we were able to tell our patrons, what we were hoping to do and how without this funding, we wouldn't be able to not only accomplish all these great new things that we wanted to incorporate, but even just maintain the level of service that we had. So you can see this, this was an article in our local newspaper, the Herald Whig. We reached out to them and they were wonderful for us. They were our allies, and that's kind of my next point, is find those allies in the community. We approached the Herald Whig and said, we're really concerned about our budget. Is there anything that you can do to help? And we were in a meeting with their news editor and their general manager. And they kind of stopped us at the beginning of that conversation and said, we know what you're facing. We want to help you. And what can we do? So we kind of told them where we were at, and they ended up running a week's worth of articles for us, front page articles describing the situation, describing different facets of what we do. And it was such a great awareness campaign, and something that, was all for free. No marketing dollars went to it, and reached a wider audience than anything we could have done on our own. So we are very grateful with that. But that came from building those relationships with our local media. We have a reporter at the Herald Whig who we know we can call when we've got a super stellar program. But we also have a relationship with the higher ups, and we don't use it all the time, but we certainly use it when we absolutely need to. So really know who your local media are and know who you can call in a pinch, and then know who you can call when the pinch gets a lot bigger and it's, kind of an emergency level. Because they knew the value of the library and wanted to do anything that they could to support it. And when you're talking media, giving that voice is everything. So incorporating all these different platforms and sharing that message was so key. And they published these articles at just the right time, weeks worth, about a couple weeks out before City Council was due to vote on that budget. So it was kind of our final push that really shared the message, and they really were able to get into all the details in newsprint and very complex budget issues in a way that just would have been really hard for us and our channels. So my takeaways when you're creating a marketing plan are really, thinking beyond marketing and into advocacy with what you do. We have recognized now that every piece of marketing that we're doing needs to be an advocacy piece. It needs to be advocating for what we're doing in the community and how we can help, in addition to promoting whatever service or program. Additionally, identifying those advocates. I've got a list of super users now, and don't hesitate to reach out, when we need a testimonial, when we need them in a picture, just having those people that are in your corner when things get tough, but also just generally make it a lot easier to handle your marketing. I kind of showed you how we repackage some of our content, but that's key. I think marketing on all these different platforms can be really intimidating. But you don't have to come up with a new subject or a new thing for each platform, just making sure that you're repackaging it in a way that is suitable for that platform and blasting it out everywhere. Remember that the same person isn't going to hear it in all 6 places. That's why you're, in all of those different places to reach different people. So it sounds monotonous for you to hear it over and over again, but it really is reaching a different audience every time. And the last thing that was really key for us and has been key as we're now into these COVID times is that video doesn't have to be intimidating. The video that I showed you was just taken on an iPad. As we've really ramped up our video in the last few months, as I'm sure most of you have as well. Just getting your iPad, getting your phone out, getting a cheap tripod on Amazon, getting, some microphones to plug into it, and you can do what you need to do with pretty low cost. The production value isn't perfect, but it's such a great way to share your message and, can reach so many more people sometimes than print can. So those are kind of my key takeaways. Hopefully it's helpful to you. And I'm going to pass this off to Anne from Eureka. Diane, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull my screen up here. Get our PowerPoint going. Okay, can you see everything now?
Looks good.
Thank you. Okay. Our take is just a little bit different. I'm the director of Eureka Public Library, and we applied for the My Library grant late in 2019. The timing on this grant offering was ideal for us. We were at a point of pretty big change for a small library. We had a children's librarian who was here over 20 years, and she had decided to retire as of December. So we knew we were going to start from scratch with a new job description, a new title, new responsibilities. We just wanted to be able to share with the public what this new direction was going to look like. A secondary piece of that is I attend the Tri-County Directors Networking Group. And as a group, we had been discussing quite often how to get more from our social media posts. This group of directors typically serve small communities, so oftentimes it's not just being director, but it's also being the person who does the programming and lots of times the marketing. So being able to handle all that meant a time issue, and it meant a learning issue sometimes when it's coming to how many different programs you might be trying to use or how many platforms you wanted to get messages across. So those two things together, we made the decision to apply for the grant. See if I can get my screen to change. There we go. Eureka Public Library serves two different townships, a combined population of 6,600 people. We are rural, but we're within 30 minutes of both Bloomington Normal and Peoria. And we have a really super supportive community. And we see that support exhibited in so many ways, through churches, through the schools, through organizations. And we felt strongly that if we presented a stronger, more cohesive message, we would see more support here at the library. Pre-COVID, we were busy, but we knew there were pockets of the public we didn't reach well. Our marketing had involved press releases to the local papers, some social media, an e-newsletter, and occasionally information sheets the school district would share. I had pulled last week our October 2019 calendar, and of the 27 days we were open, we had 21 adult programs and 11 children's programs. But nothing was recorded, nothing was online, they were all in person. And then we did have about another additional 6 or 7 programs for children where we had gone to either the local nursery schools or the early learning programs at school. I'm not sure what we'll be able to do and when as far as in library programs again, but it's important to us that we get back to that kind of level of engagement as soon as we're able. As I said earlier, the changes in staffing created the opportunity to think differently about our image. And to us, that was going to involve a marketing plan. In the past, we had done different things, but maybe not well and not in a cohesive manner. So we used the grant writing process to help us identify areas that we felt we were struggling with. And we knew that having an expert, somebody who had some background in marketing, would be able to help us find things that we wouldn't necessarily see on our own. So this process of writing the grant helped us basically come up with 4 objectives that we wanted. We wanted to evaluate what we were already doing and have our current materials audited by an outside source. We knew that branding was important, but we really needed help in understanding what that would be for us. And we needed to save time, finding templates or programs that would allow us to create, but then maybe use not only in a physical format, but also on some of our social media platforms. And finally, we wanted to have a coordinated plan so that in the end we would look good and it wouldn't look like we had separate plans online and in print. I had connected through the Eureka Business Association with a graphic artist who was willing to help, and she had come and talked with us previously, just a small amount, about what we were doing. Once we knew we had the grant, we sat down together and began to discuss what we would do next. However, we weren't too far into this. We had met in February, and before our March scheduled meeting as a group, we were interrupted by COVID. However, Jessica was able to connect with quite a few libraries through the Tri-County group, either by email, evaluating materials they mailed to her, or emailed to her using their websites and their Facebook posts to give them ideas. She looked at their websites and the newsletters, and then she would send back to them suggestions on colors and fonts, consistency in messages, watching for the details, and possible changes in color schemes. So these are some of the materials that had gone to her, and then she would send back information that she thought would be helpful to the group. Right away, this led to some discussion on what we were going to use for platforms, because what she was using was obviously fantastic, but it was way out of our price range. And it would have a learning curve that most of us didn't feel like we had time to commit to that. Eureka Public Library had used Microsoft Publisher for many years, and we had begun to look at Canva, and several in the Tri-County group were using at least the free version of Canva that was available online. Jessica wasn't familiar with it, but just after sitting down and talking about the options, even at the pro level at less than $10 a month, we felt like it was something most of us could afford to do. So we made the decision to use that as a platform that we kind of would start using for all of our materials moving forward. Once that was settled, we began to work with branding. Jessica provided some basic guidelines for us to consider, with consistency being the most important. And she gave us a big reminder over and over again to make sure that our name was on everything we were sending out, so that people would know and start to see that logo, that message over and over again about who their post was coming from or where the posters were coming from if they were around town. We thought as well here at Eureka that we typically had certain lines of programming, like gardening and crafts and history and genealogy. So we began to use taglines for that as well when we would send out our information. And then different fonts for our young adult or our children's programs as another way to help people recognize that we were moving into something different. Some other ideas we began to rethink were the style of the design and the amount of text. Side by side in this slide, I'm showing you what we had shared for a program last year, and then basically the same exact program, other than that it was on Zoom just in the last week. We've moved to a more streamlined, clearer version for our posts, and making most of our information just simply the what, when, and where. So it's easy for patrons to take a quick look at that and know if it's something that they would be interested in looking into further. And on this slide, I just wanted to point out the difference between what we see we're doing now with Canva versus what we had originally been sending out with Microsoft Publisher. It's a new feel, and we like the new look. A part of that feel involves less text, but also beneath each of these posts, there's a link or an article so that you can move and get further information about what the program in particular is about. And our third objective was finding ways to save time and making all this easier. No one wants to reinvent stuff over and over and over again. Especially when what you're doing can be used in new and different ways and still look fresh. We also discovered for some of us, when we recreate, we don't necessarily copy and paste as well as we think we do. So we had links that weren't working, phone numbers that weren't complete. So by being able to use the same basic program to recreate a variety of ways to share the message, we weren't making some of those basic mistakes. Jessica was also quick to point out stuff like the options available through ALA for Library Card Sign-Up Month, and how we could simply add our own information to those and then have something very professional that we could share with our community. She worked with themes such as fall and winter, holidays, and sports to make some easy-to-use headings for newsletters and signage. And again, Canva makes this really easy. You can upload your own photos or artwork or use their photos and designs. And templates are already available for letterheads, newsletters, posters, PowerPoint presentations. So all those things are out there. And if you like using a different program, but you want to be able to share it across the different platforms, you can typically save it as some kind of a picture file or a JPEG, and then you're going to be able to move that into Canva to use. Our final objective was the coordination of our plan. This, from the beginning, was where we knew we wanted to end up. And while we're making progress, we still have a ways to go before we're satisfied with our end result. Each of the steps discussed, the evaluation of material, branding, and using more templates have helped us really get a handle on our plan, and we're working with those steps as we move ahead with the message we want the public to see. On this slide, I have several different events that we're currently providing through our youth services program for the younger patrons. The Storytime idea is something we can do safely right now in the middle of the pandemic, and we provide options so people can decide what level they're comfortable with. So they can meet us online or they can meet us outside. We like using the same fonts and themes for continuity, and we loved adding Miss Angela's face as she is our frontline person. So whether you see her on Facebook or park or here at the library, she's a face that you're going to recognize. And we like providing this continuity through all the ways we continue to promote the library. Our marketing plan includes using paper formats for press releases and calendars, posters, and sometimes the postcards or the newsletters. But right now we're pushing hard for people to use our website and our Facebook page in particular as an information portal. In March, when the pandemic closed our physical building, we had no idea when we would be allowed to welcome people back. We did know that our online options were strong and they were available, and we began to add new options as soon as we could through our website so that people could stay connected. Providing ways for patrons to find information and entertainment through the website became a very strong message to our community, and a comforting one as well, as they knew we were still open and very responsive. We're still working towards each of these objectives, and we're feeling more comfortable as our message becomes cohesive. We're seeing good engagement from our community, especially through our social media platforms, and that is something that definitely started in the spring, but it's continuing through the summer and into the fall. And our building is now open, and with the new guidelines in place, we feel like it's a very safe place, and we're seeing many in our community slowly return to the building. But I would guess it's easy for us now to feel like our new message in many ways has become, my library is finding new ways to connect with the community every day. So Dan, I think that kind of wraps up our segment, so I will turn it over to you to finish with your part.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Anne. By the way, I love your materials. They are just they are beautiful. You did a wonderful job with that. Okay. All right, so thanks everyone for joining us today. So now you've heard from Burgundy and Anne about how they've approached campaigns in their own libraries. And I sort of wanted to tie it together a little bit. What has worked in one community might not work in another community. And you can see that, Anne and Burgundy certainly, they had different goals for their campaigns. They had different audiences that they were gonna address. They had different messages that they wanted to get across. And that's okay. That is true for everyone probably here who's attending this program. But one thing I do want to stress is the need to be proactive right now in promoting what we do, in promoting the things that we have to offer. It's never been more important. Attention spans are smaller. You're competing not just with the attention of the people that come into your building or attend your programs online or use your e-resources or whatever. You're also trying to drive support to a much wider group of people. And your goal should be not only just to attract new users, but also you have to be purposeful and plan and do the fundamentals right. Because that just helps you, keep the people you have and kind of get them, to help advocate for you. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So Rails wants to help you. And one of the things that we've done is we've created this My Libraries campaign because, back in 2019, we heard from our libraries who said, we really need help with this stuff. We would love, ways to tell our story, ways to really indicate the value that we offer to the community. So we created this place, and right now it's a website. So you can go and share your own plans and campaigns. If you log in, you can see library created materials. So things like, marketing plans, style guides, printables. It's called Sharing Showcase, and that's where real libraries have taken real things that they've done and put them in there, and you can access them at any point. We've also created some materials as a system. We've created the talking points document that's easy to download. You can offer it to your community. You've probably seen our videos. We produced 2 videos: the Dreams Take Flight video, and then the Elders of the Internet video, which featured Nick Offerman. We're super excited about that. And then we also have a blog where we're kind of updating people on projects and campaigns that are happening. We've gotten some people to write a blog post for us about something they've done, something they're excited about doing. And I also want to indicate that I know part of our audience here is coming from not libraries that aren't part of Rails, and that's okay because you can access any of this stuff regardless of whether your institution is part of Rails or not. As long as you have an L2 username and password, which most people do in Illinois, you can actually upload your own stuff as well, and you'll be able to do that pretty quickly and easily. So, as part of this presentation, I wanted to highlight some of the things on there because I think some of the things on there are great examples of just doing the fundamentals right and tying it all together and being consistent. And I think that's really important. So I'm going to go back a little bit here. I'm going to take a quick step back and do just a little bit of kind of the basics. So maybe you've seen this before. It's the marketing funnel. It's a concept that's typically used in the for-profit or nonprofit world, but I think it offers us a really good framework. So your goal is to get people down that funnel. You want to start at awareness, and I don't mean to sound flippant, but it's really difficult to do that. There are a lot of people right now who are undoubtedly outside of your funnel. They don't even know that the library exists. That's really hard. Maybe they're not big readers. Maybe they get everything from Amazon. They have no idea that you have programs online or in person. They have no idea that they can check out things like telescopes or ties or other objects from you. They have no idea that they could get their ebooks or audiobooks from you without even coming in the doors. So when you get to this stage and you're thinking about marketing and you're just beginning to approach it, you want to think about it from that funnel. And this takes reinforcement. You have to get your message out there. I like these two terms, and you've already heard these two terms in these presentations before me. So consistency and then persistency. You want to make sure that you're talking about things in a consistent way, but you also want to be persistent about them. You want to go across platforms. So we'll talk a little more about this funnel as we kind of go along. And I also just want to cover some of these activities. And, Anne and Burgundy already talked about these. Most of you are already doing this stuff. And you're probably doing it really well, to be honest with you. Signs, flyers, contests, event marketing, that is marketing. That's a form of getting your message out there. And it's a very valuable one, frankly. I just want to be clear that, you don't have to be doing all of these things. And some of you aren't doing all these things. That's fine. It's about doing them strategically. So you want to make sure that you're doing strategically. You're thinking about them as a concept. And so I kind of just came up with this, and it's 6 basic concepts that you can sort of understand and think about it as a little bit as a lifestyle. So this is an adaptation of what many other people have said in many other ways, but I think it's particularly appropriate for this presentation because Anne and Burgundy again have given you examples of this. They have goals. They've talked about their audience. They've talked about the look and feel and kind of the messaging, and then the advocates, man, Burgundy did such a good job of how do you use your advocates. So I'm gonna just take some real life examples from the My Library Is campaign and sort of show you what I mean by each of these. Okay, so the first one is understand your audience, and I took this. So it's kind of like, you might know your audience, you might know the people that come in through your doors or, who check out materials, that type of thing. But do you understand them? Do you understand their behaviors and what behaviors might indicate, a way to get other people? So I really like this example, the Vernon Area Public Library. They put, Public Library District, they put a document in there called Vernon Area Public Library Registration Drivers, and I've linked to that here. Basically they did some research on what drives people to attend an in-person program. And when you think about this, this is marketing. This is great. This is the start of great marketing in my idea. You want to understand, how did people hear about this event? So that was the question they asked people, and they asked people just, at events, how did you hear about this event? And they gave a bunch of answers, like I heard about it from email, or I heard about it from the print newsletter, or from a staff member, something like that. What they found was 75% of registration comes from one of 3 places. 1, their print newsletter, 2, their website, or 3, an email that the library sent. Okay, that's pretty useful information. That's really useful information when you're thinking about marketing. So knowing this information, would you go down the road of planning really big social media campaign or social media only? No, it might be part of your campaign, but you would focus primarily on those things that I just mentioned: the newsletter, website, email. And this is probably not going to be true of your community either. So just understanding how to gather this information. You don't have to do this exact study, but it would be pretty easy to do something like this in your own community. There's other places that you can find information, which I'm probably sure you're already doing. But if you want to study this, you want to take a look at this, again, you can find this in the sharing showcase portion of the My Library Is campaign. Okay, so after you've done some research and made an attempt to kind of understand the behaviors of who your audience is, it's time to start thinking about goals and kind of moving more towards how you're going to do and what you're going to do. So the Peatone Public Library District, they are a library close to Kankakee, and they put their marketing plan into that sharing showcase. And I like this document because I think it does something pretty interesting. They they think they put a SWOT analysis on there for one, which I think is great. So they're thinking about their weaknesses and they're thinking about threats. So a couple of weaknesses they put into their plan. Physically, the library isn't on the main drag. They don't have any other branches, so it's hard for them to do programming in other communities in the district that they serve. So those are real issues. And so when you're thinking about your marketing plan and you're thinking about what you want to do, you have to sort of take these things into consideration. So as part of their goals, they had two goals specifically. So one, increase cardholders, and two, kind of mix up their programming a little bit, offer it more towards a group of resources that they offered. And as part of that, they're thinking, okay, we also need to, remember those weaknesses and threats, incorporate those, and then make some measurable goals. Some goals that we're going to be able to actually look and say, hey, we increased, library card holders, library card signups. We increased the number of people attending this group of programs. So I think that's a really important part of marketing, doing it right. And then capture the feel. And actually, Anne did a better job of capturing this or explaining this than I could ever do. But when you're thinking of marketing, it's about evoking a feeling. We've all heard that phrase. You sell the sizzle, not the steak, and that's what it is. It's catching people's senses, right? It's invoking something that they're going to be able to take away even after the message, even after the words of the message have gone away. And one of the ways that you do that is just through consistency. And you want to be, small things like making sure that your logo and name is in everything you do. That's important stuff, really important stuff, and really useful. So the Fountaindale Public Library District, they put together a style guide. Now, a style guide is something, that's a pretty serious document that you're putting together. And you can do this as a style guide, or you can do this just as part of your marketing plan, in my opinion. But it's something to sort of define, this is how we're going to use our terminology. This is what we're going to talk about. Copywriting tips, like they talk about, like when you're writing, make sure you're upbeat, have an inviting voice. Make sure to include an action in every, like a call to action in every single, piece of copywriting that you're doing. They have a sign behind their, or policy behind their signage. So make sure that consistency is there. It's just getting your ducks in a row and making it feel like you have your act together, because people recognize this. They might not think about it like consciously, but in their subconscious, it's there. We've all seen bad signage. We've all seen, things that just aren't consistent across platforms. Maybe the logo looks different here than it looks different there. That stuff's really important, and just doing it right is a big step to doing marketing better. Tailor your message. Okay, so this is a little bit harder, and so when you're thinking about this, like what is your message? Your message can't always be the same for everyone. And Burgundy mentioned this. Their message to their alder people and to their city council was different than the message that they were sending to their general public. And you want to separate those things. So first of all, the Bartlett Public Library District, they have a really great marketing plan. And and on there, they did a demographic breakdown of their community. So they actually put together 5 messages that they thought would resonate, and they all tie to their strategic plan, which I thought was really cool. And I just want to mention them because I think that they're great. So visit a comfortable space. It was 1. Stimulate imagination. I love that one too. 3, create young readers. 4, express creativity. And 5, satisfy curiosity. I love those. So you can easily see that a message like create young readers would really resonate with families and people with kids. So, you know, and actually in their research, they identified that 35% of their residents in the community are under the age of 20. And as a whole in the United States, that number is a lot less. It's actually 28%. So, you know, reaching families should be a big part of their messaging, should be a big part of their marketing. And, you know, this idea of creating young readers is a fantastic message to kind of talk about it. So, you know, when you're tying it together, this is the whole package. This is the way that you're going to speak to people. So I really like that. And that this marketing plan is also on the My Library's website in the sharing showcase. Okay, so this one looks a little bit different, and when we're thinking about that funnel again, you know, we're moving down, right? As soon as you start thinking about, you know, people that are closer to the bottom of the funnel, people that are in that advocacy, conversion, that area, those people are your advocates, and you can use those people in your marketing. You know, again, Burgundy has done a great job for me in talking about this, and using those people. So, you know, those people are the people that, you know, they're your super users. They come to your programs, they are your volunteers, they might even be your board members. They'll show up to everything. They reflect your values. Use that energy. So on the My Library site, we have a place where you can actually upload patron stories. And we actually, the 2 most powerful in my mind, outside of those Quincy Public Library videos, which are also on the My Library's website. Christina's story is really unique. She was an English language learner. She was really lacking in confidence in terms of speaking English in front of people, but she started going to a library book club. She started to going to ELL classes in the library, and she really gained a ton of confidence and has become a huge advocate for the library. Tim from the Indian Prairie Public Library District, his is great too. He went to an employment workshop at the library. He did some mock interviews. He started using some of the resources that they have to get jobs, and he found a job in his area that he really likes. So, you know, you can read these stories on the My Library site. You can upload them yourself, but it's a very powerful part of the marketing process. And, you know, once you get those people, you can just start to use them more and more. And I think it's really a great way to do so. Finally, measure your success. Make sure that you're keeping track of the things that matter. So obviously, you know, the things that are on there, you're probably already keeping track of them. It's useful to do it in one place to say, hey, this is, you know, year by year, this is how we're doing. It should have a direct connection to your goals. It should just make it very clear what's working. And that chart that we have on there, actually right there, that is that's website page views on the My Library is website. So we look at it every single month, you know, what's working again, what's working, what's not. We have a goal. Our goal is to increase page views on there by 10% in FY21. And so I'm not ashamed to say that every time I give a presentation about this, views go up. So I'm excited about that. That February number, though, that you're seeing is pretty daunting. We had about 3 times the number of page views that we usually do, and that's because we launched the Elders of the Internet video that month. So I'm at the end of my presentation here, but I do want to wrap it up with a couple things. That Elders of the Internet video that I mentioned is on there. It's really cool. We had some pretty bad luck with our launch date. We launched it on Valentine's Day 2020, about 2 weeks before the words COVID-19 were starting to come across everybody's lips. So we're trying to get this back in front of people, and we do want to help share. We do want help sharing it. So put it into your marketing channels, put it into your social media, things like that. You'll see more from us about it. And then if you're really interested, help us out with the My Libraries campaign. There's a ton of sharing options on there. You can upload marketing plans, videos, social media, the stories again I mentioned. And then if you want to write a blog post for us, that'd be great too. Just reach out to me about that. We would love your help. Again, open to anyone in Illinois. This is not just for Rails members. All you need is your L2 login. So at that point, I'm going to say thank you. I hope you all have a great conference. This has been so much fun. Burgundy, Ann, thank you for your presentations. And we hope you go out there and do great marketing. We know that you will. So thanks again, folks.